It's been said that the Eisner years at Disney were the best of times and the worst of times. In his 20 years as chairman and CEO, Eisner took creative risks and launched ambitious projects that ushered in enormous success for Disney. At his peak, he practically embodied the rare media executive who's able to strike that elusive mix of both creative and economic genius. But he's also responsible for a string of ill-fated ventures at Disney. His lack of a plan for a successor and poor management of the huge egos at the top of his giant organization created a mess of conflict within the company. Ultimately, Eisner would be forced out in an ugly leadership transition that still tarnishes his legacy today. This is the rise and fall of Michael Eisner. In the years following Walt Disney's passing in 1966, the company foundered without its visionary, and many facets of its strong brand slowly withered in the public conscience. There were notable exceptions, of course, such as the Parks and Resorts division, with Disneyland remaining an evergreen, the opening of Walt Disney World in Orlando, and the first international Disney park in Tokyo being a resounding success. But on the whole, the general perception was that the company had lost its way creatively, and nowhere was that more evident than the films the company was putting out. Now, Disney did have some hits at this time, like Robin Hood or cult films like Tron, and the company was beginning the Touchstone label to release edgier and more adult-oriented movies. But those films were moderate successes at best, and were a far cry from the classics the studio had produced under Walt's supervision. There were serious questions as to whether it would even be possible to make Disney classics without Walt Disney himself. The company was in desperate need for a new leader to reinvigorate the organization. That man was none other than Michael Eisner. Eisner, along with his top lieutenant Jeffrey Katzenberg, had turned Paramount into a juggernaut with such hits as Saturday Night Fever, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Cheers. He was brought in by the Disney board in 1984 with the hopes that he could replicate his success from Paramount with Disney. Eisner was paired with Warner Brothers boss Frank Wells to co-run Walt Disney Productions, soon to be renamed the Walt Disney Company. Eisner would be chairman and CEO, and Wells would be president. So now Michael Eisner is in charge, and an enduring part of his legacy would be the public image he crafted for himself, modeled after that of the friendly Disney patriarch, Uncle Walt. Like Walt, he became the presenter of the Wonderful World of Disney TV series, which positioned him as the public face of the company in addition to its top executive.
Hello, I'm Michael Eisner, and I'm here with one of the original stars of Fantasia, Mickey Mouse.
Eisner and his family were fans of the parks, and he was known to give autographs to children who recognized him from TV. Eisner was seen as a relatable fan of the company, who held true to prioritizing artistic excellence over a strictly economic agenda. Eisner placed his protege Jeffrey Katzenberg in charge of the film studios at Disney. Katzenberg's ruthless push for great content gave a renewed sense of vigor that hadn't been seen at the studio since Walt himself. Under Katzenberg's leadership, the fledgling Touchstone Pictures label would turn into a force to be reckoned with, churning out smash hits like Who Framed Roger Rabbit and
Good Morning Vietnam!
But undoubtedly the most important accomplishment of the Eisner era on the film front was the revival of Disney animation. Disney started putting out one animated hit after another. This incredibly successful time for the company would become known as the Disney Renaissance.
This is her lucky day.
It's a period that saved theatrical animation from going obsolete because it was the first time people saw great animated films since Walt Disney had been personally involved. It finally proved that it was possible to create new Disney classics without Walt. The success led Katzenberg to partner with creators outside Disney to increase the animated output, most notably the likes of Tim Burton and Steve Jobs' struggling computer animation unit, Pixar.
To infinity and beyond!
Disney became a player in television again, culminating in the acquisition of ABC and, by extension, ESPN. The company also ventured into serious theatrical production, namely The Lion King, which to this day remains the highest-grossing show in the history of Broadway. The creation of the Disney Store was another significant addition to the company's offerings. Disney's theme parks and resorts division experienced major growth and expansion during the Eisner era. George Lucas's Star Wars and Indiana Jones marked the first time Disney had licensed properties of such scale from then third-party players. Eisner is also credited with opening a number of new parks, such as then Disney MGM Studios and Animal Kingdom in Orlando, 2 parks in Paris, Tokyo Disney Sea, and Disney California Adventure. and he also began Disney's foray into the cruise business. Not everything during these years went perfectly, though. From the onset, there were warning signs of the tensions between Eisner, Katzenberg, and Roy Disney. The point when things began to unravel can be traced to when Frank Wells, the often overlooked figure in this era, who was generally seen as the moderating influence that kept everything in check, tragically died in a helicopter crash. Long story short, Wells's absence left a vacancy for president of Disney, and Katzenberg, who had been Eisner's protege all along, felt that Eisner had promised him that position. When Eisner refused to promote him, Katzenberg left Disney to form a new company with Steven Spielberg and David Geffen called DreamWorks. Eventually, Michael Ovitz was brought in to serve as president, but he only lasted about a year in that role. Things were really destabilizing for Disney management. Now, the latter part of the Eisner era, 1998 to 2005, was by no means a catastrophe for Disney. There were some exciting creations like the Pirates of the Caribbean film franchise and the odd but enticing Final Fantasy crossover video game series Kingdom Hearts. However, there were a number of genuine disasters that can only be attributed to poor upper managerial decision-making.
Oh no! Cachiblejo has been crushed!
The opening of Disney California Adventure was dreadful, only to be outdone by the even worse-handled opening of Walt Disney Studios Park in Paris. The purchase of Fox Family was generally regarded as overpriced at the time. The succession problem was plagued with woes. To make matters worse, the animation studio was once again on shaky ground. All the while, Pixar was reaping in accolades and massive box office success, and to top it all off, Eisner and Jobs began feuding, resulting in Pixar preemptively seeking a new distribution partner. In 2003, Walt's nephew Roy Disney, who was a powerful figure in the Disney organization, led a campaign to shake up management of the company in what became the Save Disney campaign.
We could use your help. If you're a Disney shareholder, in my view, the best way to help save Disney is to vote no on the re-election of Michael Eisner.
He resigned from his positions as Disney vice chairman and chairman of Walt Disney Feature Animation. Among his reasons for resigning was his feeling that there was too much micromanagement within the studio, flops with the ABC television network, the company's growing timidity in the theme park business, the company turning, quote, rapacious and soulless, Eisner's refusal to establish a clear succession plan, as well as the studio releasing a string of box office flops after the year 2000. Disney shareholders took notice of Roy's resignation, and nearly half of them withheld their proxies to re-elect Eisner to the board at the next annual shareholders meeting. Eisner got the message. In 2005, after 21 years of running the Walt Disney Company, Michael Eisner announced that he would step down as CEO, and severed all formal ties with the company. The Eisner years were a crazy, transformative, and unforgettable time for the Walt Disney Company. He revived a struggling company by returning to its core roots, yet he also reinvented it by taking it in new directions. Unfortunately, despite some amazing achievements, the messiness surrounding his departure often overshadows the accomplishments from earlier in his tenure, and colors his legacy as largely negative. But over time, as we've become able to appreciate his contributions from a greater distance, Michael Eisner has been emerging as the second most prized leader in the company's history. The first, of course, was none other than Walt. Hey guys, I hope you liked the video and learned something new. Do you like my assessment of Michael Eisner? Let me know in the comments below. Now, I know there's no shortage of YouTube channels these days discussing Disney history, but if you enjoyed the video and would like to see more, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment with some feedback. Lastly, I know my view that Michael Eisner will go down in Disney history as being more prized than Bob Iger is going to get a lot of pushback from the Bob Iger fans. Do you disagree with me? Feel free to explain why I'm wrong in the comments. Adios!
Oh no! Cachiblejo has been crushed!